All right, I think we're live. How are you, Jim?
I'm well. How are you?
Very good.
Good morning.
Let me see if we can get the chat window here just to show up. Um, all right.
So this is our first time doing this, right, Javier?
This is our first time, so there's gonna be some technical challenges that we'll have to overcome, but I think we'll manage that. All right, so good morning, everybody. I'm really happy that we're here. As Jim mentioned, this is our first time doing a live interview, so
Good morning, everybody.
we don't know what to expect, but we wanted to really do this because we've heard a lot from people just congratulating Jim about his recent award, and just people saying how inspired they have been and are by Jim. So we wanted to make sure just to give everybody a chance to just hear from Jim and ask questions to Jim. So in theory, you should be able to type your questions right now, and we should be able to see them. So if anybody's out there, just can you type a question so that we make sure that we can see them. But yeah, I'm really happy. Thank you, Jim, for making the time to chat. So I think I mean everybody in the community knows Jim, but he's been the CEO and founder of JKI for about 20 years now, close to 20 years, and Jim has definitely become one of the more influential figures in the LabVIEW community, and it's surprising just how many people know Jim around the world because of what he has done. So let's get started. Thank you, Jim, for being here. Anything you'd like to say to welcome people?
Yeah, thank you. I guess first, thanks, Javier, for kind of organizing this and hosting. And yeah, just a lot of appreciation for just the amazing interactions, contributions from LabVIEW community members, National Instruments. And yeah, so just kind of a big thanks for everybody for being here today.
Great.
Along the way.
Yeah, that's great. And by the way, so we're live from the JKI headquarters in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah.
So that's why you see the sun out there and the weather is nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get started. Could you maybe share a little bit about what's your favorite thing about LabVIEW? If there's one that you can pick.
I think the thing I love most about LabVIEW is it's just fun to use. There's just something, I don't know, I grew up with playing with like Legos and kind of wiring stuff together, taking electronics apart and stuff like that. So for me, these little nodes are kind of like little blocks and get to wire them together and make stuff go. So it's, yeah, I don't know, I just love it. The colors, everything.
Yeah, no, that's great.
It's fun.
That's great. I agree with that. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, so during NI Week 2019, Jim received the Generation Award. I don't know if you can read it. So maybe Jim, could you just talk a little bit about what the award meant to you in general? And yeah, I'm just curious to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, I'd have to say that yeah, when I found out, it was a big surprise. I think it's the first time NI's given out that award. And yeah, it was what really just kind of struck me as it felt just, kind of very special to, in a very tangible way, feel that like, I had an impact that other people appreciated. And so, I mean, that kind of ties into like, I really enjoy helping people. I like building things. And also too, like I enjoy appreciation and hearing from people how the tools that we build and the systems we build makes a difference for them. So, the other thing that it really meant to me is, I was kind of thinking about the list of things that people, they recognized in my career, and then thinking about all the hard work spent by other people on each of those projects, either directly working on those things or supporting other things that I cared about, like JKI and doing technical work on projects. And so, yeah, there's a huge community of people kind of behind that award. And so I'm very privileged and appreciative to be able to work with all those people. So it really struck me. Yeah.
Great. That's great. What was it like having the award being introduced by Jeff K?
Yeah, I so cool. Yeah. I just I've for over the many years really look up to Jeff, and I think he's got kind of like what I would say sort of like my dream job, where he gets to invent cool new features in LabVIEW, an environment that I love, and I also like to kind of create tools and stuff, and just explore and to lead, and you can just tell he loves what he does. And so it was really special to receive that award from Jeff. Meant a lot to me.
That's
cool.
Great. That's great. I loved seeing basically a couple of our projects just showcasing that huge screen. I think that was really awesome. Probably for you and for the team as we were watching here and watching live there. It was just so awesome to see our work in that big screen just being showcased.
Yeah. So it's amazing. Sometimes you sort of forget the impact that some of the things kind of have, and it's certainly nice to see it up there on the big screen. It's really cool.
So for people watching us, you can type your questions for Jim. You should be able to see a group chat where you can type your questions and we can see them. Also, you could tweet at Jim.Kring or Jim Kring?
I think it's Jim Kring. Yeah.
At Jim Kring, and we should be able to read your questions if you have any questions. We'll make sure to see them.
I'll turn on alerts here.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that people have asked you, Jim, and asked JKI in general is, how did Jim started using LabVIEW? How did that start, and how long ago?
Yeah. So that's an interesting question. So I think it was like 1995. I was a student at UC Berkeley, and I was really fortunate. I got a kind of a summer part-time job, and it ended up being all through school while I was an undergrad. And I was a student research assistant at the synchrotron at the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. And my first job was to use a text-based programming environment to do some peak fitting. And I was just kind of stuck. I was like, I didn't really enjoy it that much. And then my boss at the time, basically handed me a box, a little cardboard box with some floppy disks in it, and it said LabVIEW on the front. He's like, here, install this. We have some software we want you to try to add some features to. And I went through inserting all the floppy disks, got through the installation, and started playing with LabVIEW. And I just loved it. My job was to control this little motor that moved a diffraction grating that basically kind of controlled the wavelength of light on the spectroscopy beamline, extreme ultraviolet X-ray light. And we had to acquire data off these analog sensors, and my job was to add support for a few more sensors and some pulse counters that could kind of acquire signals coming, knocking electrons off of molecules and things like that. And it had to be kind of a plug-in sort of system where scientists could come and take their own end stations and hook up their own sensors into these general purpose analog and pulse counter inputs. And then we plot the data, save it to disk. And so I spent like 4 years, adding new channels and new features and stuff like that. And I was just hooked because, all of a sudden I didn't really think of myself as a computer programmer, but it was like, wow, this is a tool. I can do anything. I can read and write files. I can control things outside of the computer. And I was just totally hooked.
Wow. Yeah. Which LabVIEW version was that? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it was 4 when we got started. And then pretty shortly after that, I think upgraded to 5. These were like old computers running Windows 95 at the time.
Would you say that the installation process of LabVIEW was easier back then with floppy disks than now, or no?
Well, I'll tell you what. the way you install LabVIEW now is, a little tiny file, and you
Right.
double click it and just pulls it, installs it. So it's gotten easier.
Okay, good.
Floppy disks are fun though.
Great. Yeah, so could you share a bit about OpenG? So probably people that do LabVIEW are familiar with OpenG, but maybe not all of them know that you're also behind OpenG. So could you talk a bit about OpenG, how it started?
Yeah, sure. So I think, how did that start? So kind of going back to when I was first using LabVIEW, I was up at the lab, the Lawrence Berkeley lab, and we had a mailing list, Info LabVIEW, and so there was a community of people that would email, ask questions, and then I really, I've always thought of LabVIEW as a real programming language, and there were other programming languages that had open source, freely available libraries. And I think one big question people had back in the day was, can you open source LabVIEW code? Like, how would you do that?
Like technically?
Yeah. So from a technical perspective, where would you put copyright notices, and would that really kind of apply? And so we just did it, and we're like, okay, we'll just add them as floating labels, and and that was really interesting. And I think it was about 2000, year 2000. We had a meeting at NI Week, got some people together, and got interested, and really, that was kind of driven by an interest in, like, I needed some tools, code reuse tools, and there were technical problems I couldn't solve by myself. And then also, once I solved the problems, I wanted to, like, share with other people, not reinventing wheels, working together, collaborating. And so, the open source stuff was a great way for me to get to work with other LabVIEW developers too, because I was, one LabVIEW developer working on a system in a lab by myself. So and we didn't have LabVIEW user groups back in the day, to the extent that, we did along the way. So yeah, it was a great way to work with other people, share code, learn, give back.
That's great. Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, at JKI, we use OpenG for almost every project, and it's just incredible to think that got started by just you guys just trying to push the limits, basically, and just not being just happy with what was out there. So that was around 2000. So was that around the time that you were thinking about starting JKI, or how did JKI start?
Well, so yeah, that's a good question too. So yeah, I ended up, I had a summer internship working for an old Alliance partner that's not around anymore, or got acquired. And I ended up working on these projects where I was kind of just embedded in kind of a team of scientists and engineers. And so I was really kind of more interested in kind of moving in the direction of kind of helping scientists and engineers, and facilitating kind of technology development and product development, as opposed to more kind of the traditional test and measurement system integrator. And I think pretty much at least every Alliance partner, system integrator, kind of back then was kind of going that, turnkey test and measurement system for automated tests. And I just, I was much more interested in doing kind of facilitating new technology, working embedded with a team of scientists and engineers. And so for me, like I just started doing kind of independent consulting, doing that, where I could work for kind of, 2 or 3 different companies at the same time, doing that sort of work. And then I ended up, working on some projects, helping develop like next generation biotech equipment, automated like real-time PCR, quantitative PCR instruments with cameras and lasers and stages and heaters, and basically, not growing, but reproducing DNA in wells and measuring that process. Right. I got to work with some really amazingly smart, passionate people doing some really cool stuff, and then I got to automate it, and people would like give me credit for these machines, and all. I was just writing some LabVIEW code, kind of helping them realize their ideas. And yeah, I've just kind of been hooked on really Um, just figuring out ways to kind of take LabVIEW skill set and have a positive impact on science and engineering and help scientists and engineers like just build and develop really cool stuff on amazing projects that make a difference in the world, like, medical devices and other stuff like that. It's really
Awesome.
cool.
So basically, it started from you being kind of a one-man shop and then evolved from there.
Yeah, exactly. I just kind of found, I had there was more work than there was time in the day, and then I ended up working with people in the LabVIEW community and in the Bay Area and presenting at user groups, and hired, like, for example, Philippe, who's one of our partners at JKI. I met Philippe because he came to an OpenG user group meeting and wanted to
Nice.
wanted to help with some of the code. And he was just out there. He wanted to help, not reinvent the wheel. And he was just a cool guy to work with. And he loves like tinkering on LabVIEW, getting under the hood, figuring out how things work, make it better. And so, and then that's just kind of, the way that the snowball kind of kept building and building around kind of that nucleus of, community. LabVIEW's a real programming language. We can build better tools. Let's use these things to actually help scientists and engineers like get stuff done and build some cool stuff that makes a difference.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how would you, in a few sentences, how would you describe what we do at JKI? Because people know JKI because of our open source tools, the JKI State Machine, the VIPM, and maybe a lot of people don't realize that what's our business. So maybe could you just describe it in your own words how you see JKI?
Yeah, sure. So we can, if you're needing to kind of automate, build kind of a control system or a product, science technology, and especially if you're using LabVIEW already, but that doesn't really matter. We can get high quality systems up and running really, really fast. And even in areas where you wouldn't necessarily think LabVIEW, could work, like web technologies and other stuff, embedded systems. So and literally within a matter of like a week or so, like we can get a proof of concept working that like connects all the key dots in, whatever technology or business you're trying to kind of figure out, connect the dots, get it working at a very basic level that delivers business value. And then, we can iterate very, very quickly, incrementally to add value in ways that kind of support product development, kind of building out the technology, and getting it proven, getting it to market, and having that generate business for a startup company, advanced research and development groups, et cetera. So and that spans from getting really tricky control algorithms working, getting a complete integrated system working, talking to hardware, or just really professional looking user interfaces. And that's another kind of fun thing we do, is we can make code written in LabVIEW that you wouldn't know it's written in LabVIEW. It has a real slick professional design on the front.
Right. Yeah. We do get that a lot. Just is this really LabVIEW? Which is it's
LabVIEW is awesome, and our applications should look as amazing as the code is. Yeah,
for sure. So basically, we're talking about, so JKI will work with startups, big companies, etc. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you was what has been your favorite project that you worked on, either because of the technology or because of whatever company we're working with, or do you have one?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, I want to answer it a lot of different ways. I want to answer it like and say, the project, any project that I'm currently working on is my favorite project. Like I get into it. Like I want to understand like what the customer needs, how to best leverage kind of the team. I want to like play a part in it. And then, the kind of the types of projects that I just really love are, building tools for developers. The work, let's say recently we did on the JKI State Machine, to integrate, better LabVIEW editor features like right-click menus and this kind of explorer window, so people can more quickly write code in a kind of a fun way. Like I really enjoyed that because I like using the tool myself because it makes me more efficient. We're currently working on some really cool tools for the people who love the flat UI controls, which has been really popular. So that's like probably my current favorite project, which we can't, which we'll be talking more about soon.
Right.
And then yeah, like yeah, I mean, I just want to talk to you about every project that I've worked on in the past 10 years and the things that I love about it. So
right.
It's hard to pick.
Yeah, that's a good answer. One of the questions that we got from somebody when we announced that we were doing a live interview was, can you have Jim talk about his role in making LabVIEW scripting available? So I've heard that story a couple of times, and it's a really interesting story. So
yeah,
can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned that I've always believed LabVIEW is a real programming environment, and in order to actually do software engineering and build real systems and not reinvent the wheels and be efficient, you have to be able to programmatically read and write code in order to automate maintenance tasks, code generation, introspection, things like that. And even to build just editor tools and things like that. And so we knew we wanted that, and we kind of knew that it existed under the hood. And and so we kind of poked around, and
and it was back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, this is a long time ago. And so and we found kind of little bits and pieces of scripting, and then like figured out you can use this thing to create this thing, and then once you have this thing, you can use that and that to create this thing, and then before you know it, we had kind of bootstrapped and found enough of scripting to then actually create an editor tool that kind of exposed scripting features for us, so that we didn't actually need LabVIEW to give us scripting. We had built a tool that allowed us to kind of have scripting.
Interesting.
And then what we ended up doing is we ended up building a right-click framework. So LabVIEW, I think in 2015, exposes you can plug in extensions that add to the right-click menu. Well, we ended up building our own tool that you could select objects and hit a hotkey and then right-click on them, and it would give you a menu, right-click menu of things, and all that was driven by plugins. And so we'd go to NI every once in a while, JKI would, and kind of show them things we're working on with BI Package Manager and other tools and things. And we kept saying, NI, you need to release scripting as a product and officially support it. And they're like, well, we're not sure what would happen if we release it. How would people use it? And NI, I'll just say today, their LabVIEW is really well established. It's a big company, and I think now NI is much more concerned. Well, it's really interested in expanding adoption and openness, and back then, NI had a lot more reasons to be very cautious as a smaller company with more kind of like gorillas in the ring, so to speak.
Right.
And so, and I approached that with caution, and they said, well, that's great. You want this, you need it. Real programming languages have it. But, what would you use it for? And we said, well, can we show you something? And so we showed them kind of this tool, which was this right-click plugin framework. And then they're like, well, that's amazing. And then 6 months later, it was released as a product.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I
think about 6 months, or maybe it is a beta version.
It's a beta.
And now it's everywhere. People are using it.
That's great.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So now people can actually thank also Jim and the early people at JKI.
Yeah, Philippe played a huge role in building the right-click framework
and hacking his way.
I wouldn't say hacking, just exploring, right?
Okay.
It's like you find things that are out there and you put them together, and yeah.
Great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's see if we have questions from the audience. So, as I mentioned, this is the first time that we're doing this, so I just want to see So one of the questions is about being in the Bay Area. So is that what do you see about being in the Bay Area that either drives you or makes what we do at JKI different, or what's the role that the Bay Area plays in what we do and what you do?
Wow. Yeah. I'll just have to say, I feel really lucky. It's a pretty cool place
Right.
in the world. So there's a lot of interesting aspects to that. I would say, we're lucky that there's, some really good schools in the area. There's lots of, talented students and great research going on. There's just a ton of investment in companies here, and there's a lot of, fortunate. There's a lot of privilege and wealth here, and so there's a lot of investment in startup companies, and so there's just this real hub of innovation. There's just a lot of R&D happening here, new technology development, and just a lot of really passionate, smart people. And so, that really lends itself to, doing work, helping kind of automate that stuff and help them get that to market. So there's a lot of work for consulting. Also, being on the West Coast, I found it's an environment very friendly to consulting. Maybe more so than other parts of the country that maybe you want to work with more established companies with more kind of structured, bigger projects and things like that. So like from day one, there was always lots of work for consultants here. And then also too, I think, just the Bay Area is just so diverse. Like the people around here, like you meet people from all over the world that, come here to work, to go to school. And I think that also, is similar to the LabVIEW community in general, which, it's a very international community. And so, that I think is part of what makes the Bay Area a great place to be. And then also too, just in terms of like just the geography and the climate, we've got, the ocean, we've got redwood forests, you can drive out to the mountains and see snow, and there's just it's a cool place to be.
No, I agree. So one of the last questions I had for you was what do you see as the future of LabVIEW? And this could be things that you actually see happening or things that you would like to see happen for LabVIEW in the future.
Well, sure. And I mean, so I think part of the Generation Award, or at least kind of what it means for me too, is, it's this opportunity to kind of reflect back on the last, my last 20 years of using LabVIEW. And, NI has, really been rolling out the next generation of LabVIEW NXG. And, I think, there's a lot of things happening that are really going to help promote kind of the community and just kind of, the platform and its openness and people working together on stuff. And I'm just really, really pumped and excited and motivated about, what I see coming in terms of, just moving over to NXG, more people using LabVIEW in the community. And so, I'm really excited. The NXG platform, like NI has been just working on, some under the hood stuff that is really awesome. We're really kind of reaching a point where over the next, 1, 2, 3 years, we're going to really start seeing a lot of people using it. And there's a lot of stuff coming in LabVIEW that I'm just so excited about that hopefully we can talk about in the next, months, years.
Are you excited about web VIs?
I am. I'm interested also in creating headless web services in LabVIEW and ways to kind of integrate with more kind of traditional web stack stuff. I'm also very interested in web VIs, which is basically the idea that you're kind of creating like an HTML, JavaScript. Your front panel, would basically be rendered as HTML, CSS and stuff. And then your block diagram would compile down into some bytecode that can run inside of a JavaScript runtime engine.
Right.
So your code's actually running in the browser. Like, yeah, that's like super, super cool. And then, yeah, it's exciting to see NI, really working to support kind of some of these kind of industry standard technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And to be able to run LabVIEW code in a browser natively is really cool. And then to be able, to deploy to headless web services, as that stuff becomes more evolved, will be really cool. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, so I think this is where we're about to wrap up the interview. Anything else that you'd like to share with everybody that is watching? Any last words of wisdom for maybe people that are starting their career in LabVIEW? Maybe that's a good way to end the interview.
Yeah, I guess words of wisdom. Just be connected, get involved. It feels like everything that I've kind of given to the community, I receive back 100-fold. And then, I find the same thing, at work, and just kind of orienting around finding ways to kind of help people and be of service and kind of get out of my own way. And it's a constant process of learning. But yeah, so, get involved. Get out there, make a difference, make the world a better place, whatever that means to you. Just, be passionate, find what you love and do it. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's a great advice. Yeah. All right. So with that, we're gonna say goodbye. Please follow us on any social platform that you want. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Send us your comments, questions for Jim later. If you have any questions that are burning inside of you, and yeah, we might be doing this again in the future.
Yeah, if we get some good questions,
yeah,
could have like a little, do it again.
Another one. Yeah, it wasn't as hard, maybe.
I think it turned out great.
I think it was great. Yeah.
This was
all right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.